welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal and I'm your host. We go over shark attacks from the 1900s, still present, mostly large sharks. And today we have a special. We're going to go through my list of the 10 scariest sharks to me. So the most dangerous list from 1 to 10. We'll go over a few others that didn't make the top 10, and we'll get started right away. We're going to start out with, the granddaddy of them all, or the champagne of sharks, the man in the white suit, the moderately okay Caucasian shark, the great white shark. Thank you to Anthony Jeselnik, my friends in Australia, and Facebook old memes for those 3 descriptions. Those are my 3 favorite descriptions of the shark. The man in the gray suit is just awesome. So the great white shark gets up to about 23 feet. Lately they've been mostly 20 feet seen. You haven't seen many that are over that. Back in the day, it looks like thousands of years ago, 23 foot was the norm for finding large shark, great white teeth. They were 23 feet back in the day. Looks like they might have slimmed down a little bit, gotten down to 20 feet. I mean, why do you need to be more than that? You're not going to be able to take care of an orca if you're 23 feet, so they might as well, shrink in size and hold back the amount of food that they have before they turn into the megalodon and they out-eat themselves. So that's probably what happened to megalodon, but this shark is one of the craziest. It outnumbers and attacks number 2 and 3 in our list. Some of the craziest attacks have been by the great white. You have Sam Kellett, you have Bob Bartle, Robert Pamperin, David Miles, Rodney Fox, tons of just crazy stories with the shark. Very well known to pass up other people and go for just one person, and we've gone over some stories where it swims underneath people to get to others, and we're going to go over a story in the next show of some surfers. There was about 4 surfers that were seaward of the victim, and they saw the shark go right under them on the way over to get the guys. So, the great white is, one of the craziest sharks out there. Territorial with boards, doesn't like you being in its area, likes to hang out where the surfers like to hang out, obviously, and quite a few times takes offense with them being in their water, with kayaks being in their water. They'll bite boats. They're territorial. They don't like a lot of things in their area, and who knows why that is, but they get up to about 23 feet. Back in the day it was reported they'd get up to 30 feet, but I don't believe that they do. Back then I have a book from the 60s that said the great whites got to 30 feet, tigers got to 25 feet, and I think bulls get to 20, so they were off on all of them. But that was just 60 years ago. They were thinking the sizes of the sharks were that. So we're going to go with 23 feet on the great white. It's attacked the most people, and it's the #1 shark I do not want to run into. Okay, number 2 on our list is the bull shark. The bull shark is number 3 in attacks as far as unprovoked attacks currently on record, but not by much. And it takes the number 2 slot because it is more often than not looking to feed when it attacks a person. Once it starts attacking, it wants to keep the attack going. Probably 50% of the time, maybe even over that. Right now it's way over that, but we've only gone over 29 attacks by the bull shark, and we have to go over 240 of them at least by the time we get there. So we've just done 10% of their attacks. And that would be number 2, the bull shark that, bit Thaddeus Kubinski, that jumped into his canal, just bit him, but it was a huge bull and bit him, and it was fatal wounds to his torso. Just one bite. That's what I call an accidental bite. He jumped in the water, startled it, it turned and bit him. It obviously probably fed on the fish that was flopping around and didn't bother wanting to feed on him. But then you have stories like the gentleman that was grabbed by about a 6-foot bull shark, dragged him out into the deeper water, and then they saw 3 fins converge on him. That happens quite often with the bull shark. It hangs out in packs. Just a bad temperament on the shark. It gets to about 14 feet long, and it's not huge as far as size, but you run into a 14-foot bull shark. We have had one bite a woman in half. The great white is most known for that. It's done bites in half, swallowed whole. But the bull shark is number 2 in my mind that I wouldn't want to run into. Number 3 with the tiger shark, and this is just by a little bit over number 4. So number 4 could rival both 2 and 3 as far as their attacks and how vicious they are. But the tiger shark comes in at number 3. More attacks than number 2's bull shark. About 10 more attacks. I think it's around 250 right now on record, unprovoked attacks. A lot of fatalities, so a high fatality rate. Unintended fatality rate, where it just takes one bite, but its teeth are so sharp and so made for cutting that it can cut right through bone and bite off your arm, bite off a limb, and then you bleed out. And that happens more often than not with the tiger shark. And that's why it falls to number 3, is because the unintentional deaths where it's not looking to consume a person. It's just taking a bite out of something, and that's what a tiger shark does. It'll go up and grab onto something. We're going to go with the length of 18 feet right now. I know that I've heard people say that they get bigger, but I haven't heard of one bigger. Just one attack in all the attacks that I've gone over has said that the tiger shark was over 18 feet, and that was Robert Pamperin. But, you know, that shark held Robert Pamperin unnaturally high out of the water and paused there. That's a great white. It's the same thing that happened to Christy Wapnarski, the same thing that happens over to the divers over there at Dyer Island. We've gone over them all. That's a great white that grabs you and holds you unnaturally out of the water and just falls into the water. We even had a surfer that, you know, went over to him and finally was able to bite him, and it did the same thing, and then it just fell back into the water. Have a video clip. I'll put a video clip in here of one of them breaching and just kind of falling on their own out of the way. So they're coming up underneath the victim, the great white, grabbing a person by the leg, and you know, they stopped themselves, but not before they raised that victim out of the water a little bit. I haven't seen that with a tiger or a bull yet, so I've gone over 1,000 of these attacks. I've already went through personally more than were available to my boy H. David Baldrich back in the day. So I can safely say when that kind of an attack happens where you're unnaturally high out of the water and you're paused there and you kind of just fall back into the water, that's a great white that's got you. Haven't heard of it from anybody else. So number 3 is the tiger shark. We're going 18 feet on the length. It's had some brutal tiger shark attacks. The one 11 foot, I think it was, the tiger shark that went after Norman Gerben and got one of his would-be rescuers also. And then we've had the one that bit now we have his name, Costigo Latura, bit him in the shoulder, biting him in the shoulder when he was taking that shrimp net, bit him in the shoulder, and when he bent over, it bit off his head. That was Costigo Latura, and we've had the other one where the gentleman was sitting there and the thing was coming at you slow. That's the other thing, is it's probably one of the slowest attacking sharks. Definitely out of the big 3. It's kind of leisurely when it comes after you. Most of the stories, anyway, I haven't heard of a huge rush from a tiger shark yet, like you'll get from a bull shark or the great white in a lot of attacks. But this thing leisurely was coming at him, and he was standing there and saw it coming, and he was screaming, and it came and just bit him in the shoulder, taking his shoulder, his arm, and bit him and removed his heart in the same bite. So the tiger shark is a rough shark. I reposted a picture of an 18-foot tiger shark, what that looks like, and they have it on the back of a boat. They obviously hauled it up. It had died in the water and was probably floating there, so they hauled it onto their boat, and it's just something to see. So number 3 are tiger shark, and number 4 that, you could swap this with 2 or 3, and I would not be arguing with you, the oceanic white tip. The oceanic white tip comes in, he runs about 13 feet long, 12 feet long. That's the max that they get. But they don't need to get any bigger. They're an open ocean shark. If you go by numbers, it would probably rival the great white, if not beat the great white, as far as being at these shipwrecks. It's located they're not in huge numbers, but they're located throughout the waters, not real cold water, and I don't know that they have a preference to not being in hot water, like the great white. The great white will not go to the bottom of South America. It stays off that tip. There's a little round part of South America right at the tip down there that the shark does not go on. It's not been seen in the waters there, so it's probably too hot for them down there. And they're barely on the other side of South America, just a little bit along Brazil, I think it is, and that's it. So, the oceanic white tip has been at these things, and when they run into people, like is happening over at Sharm el Sheikh, Sharm el-Sheikh, they get these oceanic whitetips. It looks like that there's deep water right up near shore, and that's a bad news situation. They've had makos and they've had the oceanic whitetips. And the oceanic whitetip attacks have just been horrendous. You had Lyudmila Stoyanovich, I think her name is, and she had her leg torn up. You had Olga the same day. It attacked both of them within, I think, 15 minutes. Got 2 women, and she got bitten, and it removed one of her cheeks on her rear end. So she had a devastating bite. Both of them survived it, but it's also the shark that tore up Rodney Temple. Like I said, they get to 12, 13 feet, and you don't have to get any larger than that. It was mentioned in the Indianapolis disaster as one of the shark species that were around there, along with the tiger, the blue, and the mako sharks. So, a dangerous shark, and one that we're just lucky that it's not close to people in other places, because, and people dive with all these sharks. Every one of these sharks, you can dive with them, but I'm under the impression that you dive with the shark, you're getting in the water with them, all your apparatus on there, it puts them on a different mode than they're normally in. If you're in the water and they come and run into you, that's a different thing than when you're jumping in to the water with them, gear on and everything like that, where you kind of startle them and now you got their attention. Totally different thing. So, these are sharks, all these sharks you can dive with, you can swim with. You just don't want to run into them if you're stuck out in the water, like an open ocean situation where a boat goes down. You don't want to run into one of those sharks, especially an oceanic whitetip, because they're deep sea, they're open ocean sharks, and they're more opportunistic than others would be, to where another shark that knows, hey, I'll get a meal over here. Well, this one is going to take what I can get, it. Kind of like the way that the tiger acts, but the tiger is just taking bites at things. It's just, it's a garbage feeder. It just wants to bite anything at the surface. So that's the oceanic whitetip, and that's number 4 on our list. Number 5 on the list is going to be the bronze whaler. This shark goes to about 14 feet, a cousin of the bull shark. Not a lot of attacks by them. There are some fatalities out there. They do a lot of territorial attacks on surfers and boards, and they come in right below the oceanic whitetip. It's just a stocky shark for its size. I think it has a lot more weight than like a bull shark of the same size. It's more of a thick shark. But yeah, it's another shark that you don't want to run into when you're out there in the water, because it's just big. It's got those, the right kind of teeth to do a lot of damage. The pokey teeth, we don't have a ragged tooth shark till we get way down into this, and that's going to be the gray nurse towards the bottom of the list. But yeah, the 14-foot shark and has some size to it. It's going to hurt you just by hitting you, and those teeth are not good. It's a good thing that they don't, attack people as regularly as it seems the bull shark is, because it seems to be around people enough to where it could, but it doesn't. So less attacks, much less in attacks than the bull shark. Even though it's a cousin, it doesn't seem to have that testosterone problem that its cousin the bull does. So that's number 5 on the list, the bronze whaler. And number 6, we get to the fastest shark, which is the mako shark. The short fin runs to about 13 feet long, and the long fin mako, it gets to about 15 feet. So you're talking a pretty big shark still. The short fin mako is a smaller shark, and it's got less girth in it than the long fin mako. I would think a long fin mako would be easier to mistake for a great white if you were trying to identify the shark. It's one of those sharks where you can see the teeth when it's coming to bite you. The great white, it'll show you its teeth. But the tiger and the bull, the teeth aren't that prevalent when they're biting you. Even when you see a bronze whaler biting, they're a lot smaller teeth, so you don't see a mouthful of teeth usually when they're biting. Not like with the mako and the great white. Those have the scary teeth. They're both mackerel sharks. So it's the fastest shark out there. Can do, I think, over 30 miles an hour, whereas the great white can do 25 on spurts. And it seems to be, kind of persistent to be able to get a bite in. Once it decides it wants to bite a person, it goes to some extreme lengths to try to do so. Doesn't seem to be the best at doing so, though, because it's one of those that I've seen people fight it off. Usually spear fishermen, they got their spear gun and they're able to keep it away from them with the spear gun and make their way to shore. But some of these are awful long swims to get to shore, and the thing follows them all the way in. And then it bit that one woman over there in Israel back in, I think it was 1974. It bit her 12 times. So, you know, and it's also a shark, one of the sharks that they're having come out of the water into the shallows over there at Sharm el Sheikh. It seems to be just like with the oceanic white tip. It got Yevgeny Trishkin, I believe his name is. It got him over there pretty bad. I think it removed a hand, bit up his hands and legs, and you know, we've had quite a few of the makos there. So when you run into them, they can be dangerous, and there are fatalities on record, and that's why they will go down just below bronze whaler on our listing, and they come in at number 6. Number 7 on our list now is the lemon shark. Comes in at about 10 feet in length. It is a close, shallow water, likes to be in mangroves, uses mangroves to have its nurseries, so they'll have their pups in the protection of the mangroves there, and then when they get larger, they'll branch out, but they usually stay closer to shore. Stubborn shark when it attacks. They don't let go on their own. They try to drag people out. They have to be kicked, they have to be hit, but they'll just hang on. Kind of stubborn, kind of like reminds me of a gray nurse, to where they're just going to hang on to you once they got a hold of you, and that's what the lemon does. There's been quite a few attacks from the lemons, and they've removed limbs on people. The one spear fisherman had his arm bitten off right at the mid of the forearm, so they have pretty strong teeth. They're not going to be able to bite off a limb, I don't think, bite off a leg, but they was able to bite through his arm without a problem. So they're going to come in at number 7 for us here on our list. Coming in at number 8 is the aquarium shark, the gray nurse / sand tiger shark. They get up to about 11-12 feet in length, somewhere in that area, and you know, they have all those teeth that are all piney. When you get bit by them and you get those teeth in you, and some of them have to be sewed up and some of them don't. It seems to be a pretty aggressive shark. There's a lot of attacks by a gray nurse on people, more than I thought there would be. I thought more of them would be provoked attacks, you know, seeing as it's not the largest shark, and but you know, we have a lot of attacks by them, and they're known to bite you in the head. They're one of the ones on the list. The first one that's been biting people on the head, I think we've gone over 2 attacks where the person was bit in the head, and the last one the guy was just bit. They had to shave everything off and close up this big cut on the one side and a couple teeth marks on the other side of his head. So they're going to go in just due to the number of attacks as our number 8 on our list, the gray nurse. Okay, number 9 on our list is the hammerhead, and we're just going to throw the great hammerhead and the scalloped hammerhead in there together. They're both pretty big sharks. I think the scallop gets around 12 feet, but the great hammerhead will get around 20 feet. The scallop might get a little bit larger than that, but I wouldn't want to run into either one. I just posted a video, I think last night. I came across a YouTube short, and somebody is sitting there filming the shark, and it goes after the swimmer that's standing out maybe 50 yards from shore. Swimmer's out there, and you see the thing making a beeline for him, and then it backs off when it gets about maybe 10-15 feet away, and then it goes the other way. But he's lucky that thing didn't decide to go in and get him. It was a pretty big shark, bigger than him at least, and it looked like it was a hammerhead to me. So the hammerhead comes in at number 9 because it has quite a few attacks. A couple fatalities, one of them questionable. We went over it. It was a woman swimming. Her husband was a captain of a ship. She was showing off doing a swim because they were newlyweds, and a 20-foot hammerhead came up and bit her in half and then just took her away in 2 bites, they said. So, you know, that one I don't know for sure that that's a hammerhead, but it's hard to, you know, it's hard to mistake a hammerhead for another shark. They just have a certain look to them when they, especially when you see them turn around. That's what made it look like a hammerhead when the shark was turning around after it made the run at the guy in that little clip on YouTube. It turns around and I kind of see the flat hammer coming out of the corner. So, you know, they are an aggressive shark. They're not one that's likely to try to consume you, though. They're usually pretty minor injuries, but enough of them that it's going to put it at number 9 on our list. Okay, rounding out our list of top 10 dangerous sharks I wouldn't run into. This one, it was a tough one to go through, but I'm going to put the Galapagos in there. It's only got 13 attacks on record, but one of them was fatal. We went over that, and they ended up finding them tooth marks. They ended up finding a tooth fragment, and it was of a Galapagos shark and a fatality. That's the only one that they have. 12 other attacks. You know, there are minor injuries, but you know, 11 feet. It's a large shark, and you know, you don't want to get involved with any shark that's that size. So big enough shark, I would avoid it. And that's our list of the 10 sharks. Now I want to bring up these others here, just honorable mentions, I guess. You have the blue shark. The blue shark almost made the list. If this was open ocean, this is a list of things that you would run into, say you're diving or you're surfing or you're swimming, not open ocean where your boat goes down, a ship goes down. Otherwise, the blue shark would be way up that list, because along with the oceanic whitetip, the blue is all over the place, and there's a lot of them. So the blue shark would have made the list. It's got some fatalities out there, but some of them are questionable. One of them is called a blue whaler, and I'm thinking that a blue whaler is a mako and not a blue shark. It's only got a couple of fatalities. Then you got the sandbar shark. The sandbars attacked 12 people, so they got 12 non-provoked attacks on record. Blacktip reef shark has 15 attacks on record. The surprising one was the thresher shark. They don't have any. They don't have any attacks on record. Poor beagle, no attacks. It's not on somebody that's fishing, and I don't consider those attacks. You know, you get bit when you're taking off a hook. It's a fishing accident. That's not a shark attack. It doesn't matter that it's a shark. You got bit by a shark, but you were taking a hook out of it or whatever you're doing with it. You're fishing. It's either provoked in another way or it's a fishing accident. Blacktip and spinner shark, these two are often thrown into the records as being one or the other. I think the spinner gets to about 8 feet, and then the blacktip gets 6 feet. So they get confused with each other a lot. They got a lot of attacks, but they're all those minor attacks. It's probably one of the sharks biting all those people off of New Smyrna Beach. It's surprising that, you know, we do this large shark attack show, and we cover large shark attacks, and we've never had an attack at New Smyrna Beach to cover yet. A lot of small sharks or smaller sharks biting people over there. I'm sure there's some out there, but I haven't run across them yet. So as soon as I run across a large one at New Smyrna, we'll get the shark attack capital of the world on the show. Until then, we can't. And you know, then you got the 7-gill shark has 16 attacks, but it can't do much damage. It's bitten people in the head, and it can barely make it through the thickness of the wetsuit that people have on. So the 7-gill cannot do much damage to you. And the cookie cutter shark has 5 unprovoked attacks. That's more unprovoked attacks than the poor beagle, the 6-gill, the thresher, the salmon. So the cookie cutter. 4 of those were over there in between the islands, usually at night in between the islands in Hawaii. One of them was over in Australia. So that's the list of the sharks that, you know, I wouldn't want to run into and get bit by. And those top, you know, 6, I wouldn't want to see at all. You know, you see a gray nurse, I wouldn't like to see it, but I'd feel a lot better seeing a gray nurse than seeing, you know, a mako, seeing a great white, seeing a bull shark or a tiger. So that's my list. I mean, your list could be however you want it. That's just a list of how I wouldn't want to run into them. And like I said, it's a list of just people running into them when they're doing normal activities, not out falling into the water off of a boat or something that puts you out there as a victim just bobbing around for hours. So that's going to be our list. I'm going to finish off the show today. We're going to do a What Were You Thinking just to finish off this little special episode. Okay, before we get into the What Were You Thinking, I just wanted to go over these lengths of sharks. Lengths of sharks, at least the mackerel sharks. I think they do this with all sharks, but they do it with these mackerel sharks, and I want to get into this real quick. Instead of taking a shark that they've caught, like a great white, straightening out the tail so that the lateral line goes straight across, and then measuring nose to the tip of the longest lobe, they measure from the nose to the inside of that, to the end of the caudal line, which is at the middle of the fin. So they're leaving out wherever the fins go. So that distance from the fin out, you're not getting. Now here's the issue. If you're doing that with the thresher shark, you're going to have a 20-foot thresher shark and a 13-foot length on it. It doesn't make any sense not to put the actual length of the shark. Well, we don't care what it is from the nose to that center caudal, and it makes no sense to leave out the rest of it. There's ways you can deal with that. You can measure the whole length of the shark, straighten out the caudal, measure it to the longest lobe. If there's an injury to the lobe, you can use an asterisk. The way you're doing this right now, going to the center of the tail, it makes no sense. You got at least a half a foot of tail left that you're not counting as far as the distance of the shark. So when I look at length of something, I look at the total length of the thing. Your measurements are probably fishing measurements or whatever they are. They're just nonsense. We should know what the whole length of the shark is. When they talk about a thresher shark, you can't have a 20-foot thresher shark and then have 10 feet of tail hanging off that thing. So it's one or the other. And the same thing with a bull shark. You're going to measure just to the center of that caudal line. You're leaving off at least a foot, foot and a half of the upper lobe. So just grab the longest lobe and measure from the tip to the end of the shark. That's the way you measure length. They should have taught you that in grade school. So anyway, that's our story of that. We're going to get to Zuma Beach in California. This is What Were You Thinking? In August of 1955, Dale Strand, he's 25 years old. It sounds like he's an actual lifeguard. If he's not, the other two are lifeguards. But he's out paddling on his board and claimed that the shark charged him. Well, the shark, I doubt, charged him. He grabbed it by the tail, and he was trying to drag it into shore. It bit him in the process. Now, two other lifeguards came out to help him drag it into shore. It bit both of them too. And the three of them got it to shore before they went to go get help. They beat it to death. So, you know, Dale Strand, what were you thinking? But secondly, you're an idiot. What was the shark doing to you? It's a 5-foot thresher shark. So if you're talking, like I said, if you're going to go with 5 foot, then it's like a 3-foot long shark with a long tail, or it's the whole 5 feet. Or it's 5 feet and then a tail coming off there that would be about 3 feet long. So which is it? You know, now this measurement stuff has me confused when they're talking length of shark, because when they talk length of shark, when they talk about properly measuring sharks, they're leaving off some of the shark. So anyway, you know, Dale Strand, what were you thinking? Going out there, grabbing onto a shark, trying to drag it into shore, and all you did was killed it. I mean, you didn't need to kill the thing. Somebody had to investigate it, and they came across the real story that it didn't charge him. It sounds like he grabbed it by the tail. Provoked incident. What were you thinking? That's our show for today. That's the list of the dangerous sharks I never want to run into. But I don't go in that water. But if you go in that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.